Hey, how's it going guys? My name's Daniel, aka HashLips, and welcome back to my channel where today I'm going to show you how you can read events from smart contracts on the blockchain. Today we're going to be reading events from smart contracts, and before we start, I highly recommend watching the dapp development starting point video right over here. This is included in this playlist so that you can start off from the exact starting point here, which we have set up already. Now, before we start coding, let's understand quickly what are we trying to do. Well, if we go over to Etherscan, we can look at the contract Ethereum name service, or you can pick any NFT contract of your choice. Actually, any contract, not just an NFT contract. In our case, we are going to base this off an NFT project. The whole goal here is to try and read event logs, things that happen in the contract's execution. If you are familiar with JavaScript, think of it being like a console.log statement. Essentially, if we go down here to the contract itself, and we're taking the Ethereum name service as an example, we can see over here is a list of events that could potentially take place. Now we are looking at the interface over here of the descriptions of each event. For instance, the new owner event, transfer event, new resolver event, and so on. If we take a look here at the transfer event, we can see that it's going to take in a node as well as an owner. Okay, and this is basically what this interface requires. Now, if we refer to the 721 contracts interface, it can also have an event. This time, we are going to have the from address, the to address, and which token has been transferred. Now, these are just the blueprints of the event. But usually, with an emission call, you can actually execute an event and actually record that on the blockchain logs. So, if we go down and look at an example over here, we can see that this function has the approve function, and at the very end, we emit an approval event, sending in the owner, the to address, as well as the token ID. This is great, but why is it so important? Well, as a developer, we sometimes would like the UI to react in some way when there's a transfer that takes place or an approval. And we can track this by looking at the events. On Etherscan, we can actually take a look at these events by going to the event tabs down here, scrolling down, and here we can see the most recent events that took place. 20 seconds ago, the name renewed event took place. 20 seconds ago, as well as a transfer event took place. So if we expand this, we can see the field from, to, and the token ID, which is quite large. What's great about this is that we now have extra information live coming from the blockchain, so we can make use of this in our dapps. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to connect to a contract and read from the events that's taking place. For this video, I'm going to be focusing on the transfer event, but you can take this knowledge that you're going to learn and apply it to your dapps and look at many different events on a smart contract. So let's go back to the code. Now, in the previous video in this playlist, you will already have this set up in front of you. So we are simply going to carry on and add some code. Just a brief recap. In this dapp, we have an ABI for the ERC721 contract already, as well as a connect function and a check balance function. For now, we can get rid of this check balance function, as well as just comment out this button for now. We can get rid of this dapp title. We are going to reuse this button on a later stage. So next, let's go and create a function up here. In this function, we're going to say listen to event. And this is going to be the function that we will use to read the event from the contract. Now, in order to read events, you first will need an instance of the contract. So let's go ahead and create one. We can instantiate a new contract using ethers. And how we do that is by specifying the new keyword type in ethers, and then we want to get a contract. What a contract needs is the token address, the ABI, and we're also going to provide a signer. For the address, we are going to hard code this address in there. This is the Ethereum name service contract address, so we can go back, copy that, and let's put this first. Then we can give it the ERC721 ABI and the signer. Now the signer we already have, and this is provided for us in our connection function. And that is it. That is how we instantiate the contract. Let me just format this nicely. And basically, now that we have the contract, we can use it. We can use the contract on event, like so, to listen to an event. And what we can basically do then is extract the variables from here. So this is how it will look. The variables that we can get from this event is actually specified in the contract. So like I've shown you before, if we go to the events, we can see the transfer event has a from, a to, and a token ID field. Alright, so we can now go back. We can then extract the from, the to, and the token ID. Now we can also get a data field in here, which I just am going to call event. This is extra parameters and data that's sent with this log. So now what we can do is extract this data. It's good to maybe place it in a nice variable so we can keep track of our data and save it in state. Let's define the from, the to, and basically in JavaScript, if this is the same as your key, you don't need to specify it twice. But we also need to have the token ID, which I am going to say token ID dot to string because it's a big number. And we can also save the event in here. For time being and for testing, I'm going to console.log this out, and we will see what data gets returned when we call this function. Now this function is not being called yet, so let's go and call it right after we connect. In fact, let's put it right here. Perfect. Let's go back to our app and see what happens. If we go back to our dapp, we can see that immediately we are getting the logs from the events. And here we can see the from, the to, and the token ID. Now this is brilliant, but let's make it look more presentable and also have a button that disappears after we start listening to the events and see if they can actually update live. In the code, what we want to do is actually take this event out here. We don't want to call it immediately. Let's uncomment our button, and here we can maybe say get event. And for our function, we will place listen to event. So our button is back. The next step is for us to create some state to store this data in. I will make use of the use state. So let's do this twice. And for the first state, we're going to say this is our event logs. And here this will be set event logs. And we're going to start this off by being an empty array. The next piece of state has to do with the button. I want to hide the button after clicking on it. So this will be the button hide state and set button hide state. And here this could be false when it starts off. The reason why we want to hide the button is because once we are listening to the event, we can continuously listen and there's no point in subscribing twice. So in this function, we can also then hide the button and set this to true. Then if you go to the button itself, what we can add here is this line over there. Let me just format this nicely. So this line basically tells us that if the button hide the state is true, then don't display the button, else it's fine, it will be displayed. So let's save this and just test out that our button indeed gets hidden if we click on it. And yes, it does. Fantastic, but we are not saving the data in our state yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call set event logs down here now, and let's capture the old state, and then we're going to actually create a new array by using the old state as well as the new data that we have over here. We're not going to console.log this out anymore because we know it's working, but now we can render this as a list in our HTML. So just below our button, what we're going to do is actually read the event logs that we have saved in state. We are going to call reverse first because we want the topmost event to come first. Then we're going to use map and map over our events. We have an event and maybe an index so we can assign a key. For now, we are going to return a div element. Now this div element, we're going to assign a key attribute. This will be our index. And let's just close the div element. And then we can also maybe give it a style. So let's actually give it a class name and define a style. And this could be container. Now that we have this, let's just quickly go and add some styles to this container. So in the app.css file, define your container class. Let's give it a display of flex. I love flex box. And align the items center. We're also going to justify the content, maybe space between, as well as a gap of maybe 20 pixels, a padding of 10 pixels, and then we need a margin bottom because this is going to be a list of 20 pixels. Now this might not be perfect, but it is a start. So now that we have our div box, our container, we need some content. So we already have the from and the to. So let's go and include those two addresses. We'll start off by providing a p tag. And actually we will have 3 p tags. The middle one will simply be something like this. A little arrow. The top one over here will say this is our from field, and we'll specify that this is going to come from our event.from. And we'll do the same to this bottom one. But this will be the to field, and this will go to an address, right? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we go back to our dapp and we refresh this page, we should see our get event. And when we click on this, we see the event. And here we go. We have the from, and it goes to this address too. From and to, from and to. Now we can verify if this is the live data. And if you observe this quickly, you might have seen this change because it continuously listens. So if we go back to the ENS contract and we go ahead and refresh, go to the events, we can see that the latest transfer event was this one 1 minute ago, and we can see that the address, if we open this up, ends with a 7F5, and the to address with a 33B8. If we go to our app, we can see there's the 7F5 and the 33B8. Now if you just leave this page open, it will update live. How cool is that? So keep in mind, we are only looking at transfer events on this particular contract, but you can use this knowledge on all your dapps and explore the Web3 space. If you enjoyed this video, ladies and gentlemen, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, let me know in the comments what you would like to see. Cheers for now.